Disclaimer, trigger warning. The We Are One podcast aims to shed light on the abuse experience within the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church. The stories shared are from survivors who bravely recount their personal experiences. It is important to note that unless an abuser has been convicted in a court of law, they are presumed innocent until proven guilty. The podcast does not serve as a legal judgment, but rather is a platform for survivors to share their truth.
Welcome back to the We Are One podcast. I'm your host, Olivia.
And I'm Jen.
And today we have Caryn.
Yeah, I'm Caryn.
Yeah. I know these things can be like nerve-wracking and all the above because, I did it, so you did it, so we could totally understand. Like, give a little summary about you and how you got into with the IFB.
Sure. I was born and raised in the suburbs of Chicago. My dad had a really good job. He had his own business. I had parents my whole entire life. When my mom died, that is when my dad no longer was married. I have three brothers. I'm the only girl. We were raised in an evangelical free church. My pastor was actually Dave Wiersbe, and his father was Warren Wiersbe, who pastored the Moody Church in Chicago. I knew nothing about the IFB at all. I was driving around in my car with my friend. We were in high school, and we saw a guy in the park, and it looked like he was just talking to himself. And I don't know if we were going to go make fun of him or what we were going to do, but we pulled over to talk to him. And he came up to the window and he said, "If you die today, do you know 100% sure that you go to heaven?" And I said, "Absolutely." And he said, "Well, how do you know?" And I said, "Because I was led to the Lord and saved. My mom led me to the Lord, explained the situation." And my friend said no. So he led my friend to the Lord at that point. We didn't think anything of it. We didn't think we were ever going to see him again, but he was there again the next day. So we just started hanging out and talking to him. Come to find out, he was from the Baptist church in my town. So we started going to church with him. And my mom didn't care if I went to the Baptist church, evangelical free. She was glad I was just going to church. It turns out, though, that he was only staying there. He was living inside the church. He had no place to live, and the pastor of the church was letting him live there. And then we learned that he was actually from Hyles-Anderson College and First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana. We started actually riding the bus to the First Baptist Church. So I was considered a bus kid when technically I really was not a bus kid. And that is how I learned of Hyles-Anderson and First Baptist Church.
Okay. Interesting. So how old were you about that time?
I was 16.
You were 16. Okay. And was this like an older gentleman or?
He had to be in his 20s. It wasn't like an old guy. It was, just in his 20s.
Yeah, because I'm picturing like some creepy old guy in a park hanging out with 16-year-old girls like, hey.
So you want to come touch my red balloon? Yeah. What I'm imagining. So can you describe what it was like riding on the bus? Because you're not, you never done that before. So how was that, going to First Baptist Church of Hammond? We all know we've all heard the stories, but what was your experience?
Well, they did not pick up in my town because I wasn't the typical bus kid. I did not live in a poor town. My dad owned his own business, etc. So we had to drive 4 or 5 towns over to meet the bus. And we'd get on the bus Sunday morning. They would sing, they would preach on the bus, they'd pick up the other kids, and then we'd go to church. We were considered the D ministry because we were so far out from Chicago. We were in the suburbs, and that was called the D ministry. So we got there later in the day. And then we did the Sunday school. We'd get back on the bus, and they would drive all the way back, drop off the kids. And then we would drive the bus back to go to night church. We wouldn't get home till like 10:30 at night.
Oh, wow. Wow. So did you have any involvement in the church at all?
At that time, no. But then I graduated high school and I decided I wanted to go to Hyles-Anderson College. And so I enrolled and they accepted me, and I was still young because I graduated high school early.
Okay. So when you were at the college, what was your experience as a college student there?
When I arrived there, I easily followed rules. It was the 80s, early 90s. And so basically we followed the rules. So it was no problem going there, following the rules. But they kept insisting that I was a bus kid. Now, bus kid was on another level when you were there because you came through hardships and you were in gangs and you did drugs and you did this, that, and the next thing. And I kept saying, I am not a bus kid. But they kept insisting, you rode the bus, you're a bus kid, fine, whatever. I made it through the first year, no problems, whatever. But when I came back the second year, the whole bus kid thing really started like grating on my nerves, because when I say my dad has money, my dad has his own business, why are you not believing me? And they just would not believe me. So I started playing into it, said I was on drugs. I had an abortion. I was in a gang. The gang was after me. We're at church and the gang is following me. Like, I made up this whole elaborate scheme of being a bus kid. So they finally called me in to the Jim Jorgensen's office. He was he was the vice president of the college. And they were asking me to leave. They weren't expelling me. They were asking me to leave for my own safety and the safety of other students. They called my parents in there. My dad's like, this is all fabricated. Like, he was mad. And I didn't know whether to tell him the truth or tell the college the truth, because it was just all made up. So I was like in a hard place. I didn't know what to say. So I left there letting my parents believe that I was in some gang. I don't think they really totally believed it, but they didn't call me on it.
Oh gosh, I can only imagine. My mom be like, "Wait, what?" I'm sorry, what? Your parents picked you up, like, or like, what was the timeline of eventually your parents finding out that, like, okay, I was lying?
Well, I don't know. So it was right before Christmas when they asked me to leave. They didn't want me to lose the whole entire semester, so they let me take finals. When we came back after Christmas, I drove up there and took all my finals in one day, so that I got credit for the semester. But in the meantime of that, there was two gentlemen at the college, and I can't say anything bad about them because I was the liar. You know, I was the one not telling the truth. But they talked my parents. They talked my parents into sending me to the Roloff homes. And so parents are like, okay, that sounds like a good idea, you know, because I don't know if they believed me or they didn't believe me or what have you. But they agreed to send me to the Roloff homes. And that's where the Roloff homes comes into play here. And I still wasn't 18. So.
Okay. So you're 17 at this time?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so which because there's quite a few, which Roloff home were you sent to?
I was sent to the one in Corpus Christi, Texas. And at that time, I had flown in and the lady picked me up at the airport. And we went down some long road. When people say they couldn't run away because there was nowhere to go, that's because these places are on long roads in the middle of nowhere. Like, where are you going to go?
I do have a question, because we spoke with Barbara Ann and she got sent to the Rebecca home. And she, you know, but she was a lot younger than you. And she had said, like, basically they had her, I mean, pretty much like looking like a gel inmate, like
yeah, they had her
like
in an orange jumpsuit.
Like, yeah. So people would think like she was like this horrible person.
But she was a ward of the state though.
That is
from
true.
Illinois.
Yeah.
And then they flew her down.
So was it like, did you meet a lady? Like, was the lady like a part of like the Lester Roloff home, or like was it somebody from First Baptist Church? Like, who rode on the plane with you?
Nobody. My parents put me on the plane at O'Hare. I flew into Houston and then I had to switch planes and I got on a smaller plane, which flew into Corpus Christi. When I got off the plane, and since I was young, I'd never been on a plane. Whenever we traveled, we drove in a car. So like, I was nervous. Yeah. And nobody was there to pick me up. I'm looking for somebody. Nobody's there to pick me up. I'm looking around, you know, it's a small airport. And I was heading towards the information desk. And I heard my name over the loudspeaker that Mrs. Thorne was there to pick me up. And so I meet this lady. She was in charge of the girls' home that I was in. Well, the Rebecca home was closed at that time. So when we actually arrived at the property, there was a huge banner across the Rebecca homes that said closed by state religion. So I was in the home right next to it, which was a Jubilee home.
Okay. And what year was this?
It was the late 80s, early 90s. I'm not exactly sure of the year.
Okay. And so when you're going down this, you know, long path road and you're like, okay, like, you know, that saying like, I can't run away because, well, there's literally nowhere to go. What was your first instinct? Like, were you like, okay, I'm no longer safe, or were you just like optimistic? Like, what were you like? do you remember like what you were thinking?
I was just like, what in the world has happened? Like, I was like, I don't even think I was thinking anything. I was just like going with the flow at that point. And then, we go down this long road, and then I see the People's Baptist Church, which was on the property. And then you see a guard, like not a tower, but like a box almost where a guard would sit, but there was no guard in there. And then we pulled in and we went inside the Jubilee home. And I was just like, okay, now what? Well, now what is she pulled me into a side room and made me get naked. Like immediately she made me get naked. I had to take off all my clothes, and I'm standing there naked with the woman I do not know, and she's searching my bags. And at this point I'm like, what is really happening here? And but I just went along with it because I didn't know what to do. At that point, you just don't know what to do. You're just like, what am I doing? What is happening? You have no access to the phone. They don't let you call your parents for the first 30 days. So who was I going to tell about this? So I just went with it because I didn't know what was going to happen to me if I didn't. And then they gave you lice shampoo and shampoo for crabs, and she made me take a shower in front of her.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
Yes.
That like took me like I like literally the wind like just like
in the first 24 hours.
Yes, it was right when we got there.
Okay, so then you're thinking, oh crap. What
did I like, or not like, because you didn't sign up for it, but like what you're probably thinking, okay, maybe I shouldn't have.
Series of events that led up to it had
Yeah.
to be like running through your mind, right? You're just like, how did I end up here?
Yes, exactly. I really was. How did I end up there? And the two gentlemen that sent me there, one of them had worked at the Roloff homes with Lester Roloff, and he explained it like a different way. But when I got there, it was not how he explained it. But he had been far removed from it for years, so maybe it had changed since he was there or what. I don't know. But like I was like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. Mr. Roloff preaching before about how the girls were going to run away and this, that, and the next thing. And that started going through my mind. What were they thinking? How are they going to get out of here? And the doors were locked. You were locked inside.
How many girls were in your like house at like one time? Because home, how many girls were with you?
Well, the Jubilee home was actually for 18 or older, but there were several of us that were not 18 there. So there was about 20 rooms, I would say. And most of the ladies were older. There were some younger ones. But also, and I didn't know it when I first got there, and I had never been in the Rebecca home, but that's where there would be the lot of girls because the home was huge. And there were no girls there, but on the property, there was another trailer, and they were called the Palmer girls, and all those girls were under 18 living in a trailer.
In one
there must have been 10 to 15 of them.
Okay, because Barbara Ann called that trailer row when she was there in the 70s.
Yeah, there were trailers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so okay, so you were in the Jubilee home. Did you have a roommate or any roommates at all, or were you by yourself in the room?
No, I got picked up at the airport, there was a girl in the car with her, and that was my roommate. And you cannot be by yourself for the first 30 days. So everywhere you went, if you went to the bathroom, the girl came with you. If you went to church, the girl came with you. It was your buddy for 30 days.
Yeah, it's like your like with Circle Club, they called it My Buddy program. And
right,
yeah, My Buddy program. And basically like they would show you the ropes of like what to do, what not to do, or would be there to basically watch your every move. It's like one of those.
And tell on you if you didn't do something right. Were they like, was she like that? Or was she cool? Like, hey, just trying to save your butt. Don't do this. Don't do that. Like helping you? Or was she more of like a snitch?
She never snitched on me. She was okay. She was getting ready to be released though. So she was probably gone after she was no longer my buddy. Like she was released shortly after I got there.
Okay. So for the Jubilee home, since you well, not you at that time, but because Jubilee home is for people who are 18 above, and some listeners might be like, okay, then why didn't they leave? They're technically an adult. What were you guys conditioned to think like why you guys couldn't leave at 18?
Most of them checked themselves in. The ones that were over 18 checked themselves in for whatever reason. Yes, I'm telling you. So maybe they were on drugs.
Our face is like, what?
Okay, well, their family situation at home must have been so bad to where they were like, maybe this place I can find like some kind of,
You were there after his death. Who basically were like running? Like, was there so many different like staff people, or was it just like one, main person? Who took over Lester Roloff's role after he passed away?
Wiley Cameron took over Lester Roloff's role. He was a pastor of the church. He ran the homes. There was boys' homes on there too, but we never saw them because they were not near the girls' homes. So I don't know where they were located on the property.
They were like, on the, because I remember Barbara saying like, they would like go fishing, like, like they would be like farther away. So can you explain what like the dress code there? What did you guys have to eat? Like, how was Jubilee Home for you?
It was, like I said, it was smaller. The Rebecca home was huge. It was right next door, like 10 feet away, 15 feet away. It was right next door. And that was huge. The Jubilee home was smaller. All the rooms were on the side. It was just long, and all the rooms were located on the side. And then in the center, there was like a gathering room with couches. And then there was a kitchen in there. There was also a padded room where if you did something awful, they would put you in the padded room and lock you in there.
And because I feel like there's a big pattern with these IFB homes, or, these things where there's always that one room where if you're doing something bad, you get sent there. What was it like? Did you ever have to go in one?
I never had to go in there. One girl was locked in there, and another girl, you're going to think I'm lying, she checked herself into there.
Wait, what?
Maybe she just wanted to get away from the other people.
Yeah, she was. They didn't lock the door when she checked herself in there. She could come and go, but she stayed in there for whatever reason. But the other girl was locked in there for overnight.
And do you know, like, did they play like certain, because, like after like these documentaries and like talking, like definitely like for me talking with these people, and they're like, oh, they're blasting sermons, and it's replay, and you get no food, or you do get food, but it's like bare minimum. Do you know what the treatment was like in there, even though you never experienced it?
I don't know if they gave him food or what, because you weren't like allowed around those areas. I do know that they blasted Lester Roloff in there. They blasted Lester Roloff sermons all over the place there.
And when, can you kind of explain the schedule of Jubilee? Like because most of them you do labor work or whatever. What did you guys have to do? Was there any education
there?
there?
Work on the farm or whatever too?
Well, you'd get up really early. I want to say it was 5 o'clock. It could have been 6 o'clock though. And they'd give you an hour to do your own devotions, get ready, and make your bed. When you came out of there, they did serve you breakfast. That was in the Jubilee home. You didn't eat every meal in the Jubilee home, though. So the breakfast was served in Jubilee. After that, you had to clean up like the common area and all, and the bathrooms and whatever else. And then it would be chapel. So somebody would come in and preach, whether it be Wiley Cameron, maybe Mr. Thorne, maybe Mrs. Thorne gave a devotional. Her son preached sometimes. It was different people all the time. And that lasted an hour. And then after that, you had to memorize Bible verses. If you didn't get your Bible verses memorized, they made you run laps outside on the fenced-in area. After that, you would have to go over to the Come and Dine. That is where you actually ate lunch, and everybody on the farm ate lunch there. So they would cook a huge thing of food there. And they would pile the food onto your plate. There was so much food on your plate and you had to eat it all. So whatever they put on your plate, you had to eat, and you couldn't choose. I couldn't just say I want a salad only. Nope. I got the salad, the chicken, the potatoes, the green beans, and whatever else they were serving. And it was a lot of food. It was too much food for, the age that we like. It's too much food for anybody, period.
Yeah.
And so they would make you eat that. And if you did not eat that, then at night you had to scrub the floor with a toothbrush all night long.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
You could opt out of it though, and say you were fasting. So after the first 2 meals of that, I never ate lunch ever again.
You're like, I'm fasting and praying. So
So if you were fasting and praying, you had to sit at your own table and you couldn't look up and you had to have your face in the Bible. So I did that the rest of the time that I was there. After that,
I think you're gonna scar people when they hear fasting and praying now. All I can think is like this now. Oh Lord.
The Palmer girls were in there eating lunch with us, and there was a lot of them. When they were in trouble, they had on a red shirt. They couldn't eat lunch and their faces were up against the wall.
Okay, so I have a question about that. So in one of the clips on YouTube of this documentary that Lester Roloff made, there is a clip of him talking and girls lined up against this wall. They're all wearing the same outfit, except there's this one girl that we noticed. She was wearing a red skirt while all the other girls were wearing a blue skirt. And she was clearly visibly crying in the background of the video.
Wiping her
tears off. And we said to each other, I wonder if her wearing the red skirt means something different than, so I'm one, and that was in the 70s or 80s that film was made. Probably the 70s because he was still alive.
Yeah, and he talked a lot about Rebecca Home and like, cause like, you know, that the one who started everything was Rebecca Home. But she was like, I mean, crying, like I kept on saying, wait, that girl's crying.
Yeah.
And then she realized that she was wearing something different. So did you guys have a system in that way? Cause like Circle of Hope, my good friend Gabby, she was talking about like the black shirt or yellow shirt or that, you know what I mean? Like, this is what that means. Was that like,
from,
was that like that at Jubilee Home?
No, not in the Jubilee Home because most of the people were older. So, and like I said, some of them checked themselves in there. So they did not have that, but it was the girls that came out of the trailer that had the different top, and everybody knew you were in trouble because of them wearing the different top.
Okay.
And so, I mean, granted, this is abuse in so many other ways, but was there any other like type of abuse that you like either experienced or witnessed?
There was not, maybe in the trailers that they were spanked or whatever, but in the Jubilee Home, no, again, because most of them were over 18. So there was like no physical anything done to any of the girls that were in the Jubilee Home. They did make us work a lot though. After lunch, we had to wash all the dishes that were in the come and dine. And so one girl would be in charge and she would assign the jobs, and she always gave like her friends the better jobs, you know, like cleaning the big pot, which only took 5 minutes, while I'm there washing all the big pots and pans with roaches falling off the wall onto me.
Oh
yeah,
no.
There were roaches all over the place.
What?
Oh no.
Yes.
See, no, I can't do bugs. So
yeah.
I think literally like literally like, not to be funny, but like I honestly probably would have committed suicide or something.
They were also in the rooms, so my bed was not pulled up against the wall at all. The headboard wasn't on the wall, the side wasn't on, because the roaches were crawling on the walls in there.
Didn't they? I know, but I thought they had like you guys like cleaning the place all the time. Was it still just like because it was Texas? Maybe, I don't know. Just Texas have a lot of cockroaches.
They have flying cockroaches, so it could have just been Texas because it was clean in there. It was clean.
Yeah. Okay, that's crazy though.
Well,
you would think they'd have some kind of like extermination service.
Yeah. I mean, he had a plane for God's sake.
Yeah, right. He couldn't be an exterminator over there apparently.
So another thing that we picked up on the documentary was like I know that you didn't have any encounters with Lester Roloff, but I'm curious if the wily Caryn, you know, was just like monkey see, monkey do. We had noticed that most of the girls sounded like robots. Like, did you guys have to like pretty much sound like robots too?
Not really. I only really saw Wiley Cameron at church Sunday morning, Sunday nights, Wednesday nights, and sometimes he would have an extra service and we'd have to go to that. And the times that he came in and preached, but like I really had no interactions with him. I don't know what he did outside of, you know, the daily whatever.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is when the girls were on the platform with Lester Roloff, and they were all quoting scripture at the same time and saying certain
at church and stuff. Did you guys?
Yes, we had to do that.
Yeah, okay. So it was like it sounded robotic. It sounded very like
I think Lester Roloff was like, "Girls, say Psalm 119, and it was like, thy father, like, I mean, like, it sounded like a robot. And I was like,
It sounded like that. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you guys still had to do that even though Lester Roloff, no longer was alive.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what year did you okay, so what year did you leave the Jubilee? Like what made you like what led up to that?
I was out of there in a month because
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah. So
how'd you get
all of this within a month.
Wow.
Flying roaches.
Yeah, right?
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
So what happened is like I'm like totally like disgusted that I'm even there and having to go through this because like I said, it was all a lie what I said. I had no business being there. I had done nothing wrong to actually go there. So whatever. So like I said, in the coming down, we had jobs and I got sick of that. I got sick of doing the pots and pans. So I decided I'm going inside and I'm going to tell that I'm not doing the pots and pans anymore. Well, there were girls guarding the door, so you couldn't leave. And I walked right past the girl and she's like, you can't leave. And I said, F you. And I walked away and I went and I couldn't get in the stupid girls' home because the doors were locked. Now I'm knocking on the front of the girls' home. I'm outside knocking on the front of the girls' home trying to get back in there. And so they let me in and they're like, why are you outside? And I was like, I'm telling you right now, the equity inside that dining hall is not proper. The same people are doing the same jobs. The same disgusting jobs are given to the other people over and over and over again. And she actually listened to me. So the jobs were changed up then. But I was still disgusted with this whole entire thing. When you would go to church, you had a line up. And they would walk you over to church and there could only be like 3 or 4 girls per pew. You were spread out across the whole entire church. You could not look up. You had to look down and look at your Bible the whole entire time. You couldn't look left. You couldn't look right. You couldn't talk to anybody in the church. You just had to sit there in your pew. And this was every single church service. And the girls would go up there and sing that were in the Roloff choir. And they would sit up there the whole entire sermon. Church would end and we get back in our line and walk back out and go back into the Jubilee home. So I don't even know how many really church members were there because the church was not packed. It was just all the people that were in the homes that were in there.
Okay. That's what I was gonna ask was how many actual church members, vice versa, like instead of like the homes. But it sounds like if you're putting 3 to 4 girls on one pew, it's gonna look like it's so packed in there.
Right.
But in reality, it's probably just the homes and maybe a few other
and the
people.
workers.
Yeah, staff. So what was the one thing that stood out the most to you? Like, even if it's just like in general, about Lester Roloff and like what, he's done or whatever.
Well, so when I wanted to leave there, we had been hoeing the garden and I had red ants biting my legs and stuff, and nobody cared. We were all being bitten by red ants. We also had to clean Mrs. Roloff's house and take care of Mrs. Roloff because she was still alive. And we were just being like worked to death there. We just had to keep working and working and working. And if you weren't working, your face was in the Bible. And like I was just done. And it's not the Lester Roloff that I was told about, when I was convinced to go there. So I told them I wanted to call my parents, and they actually let me. So I called my mom and I said, I'm telling you right now, if you do not get me out of here, I will leave here and I will run away and I will go into Mexico and you will never see me again. And my mom was like, okay, hold on, let me make some phone calls. So she called the 2 gentlemen that had sent me there. And then one of them called me at the Roloff homes and he asked me what is going on. And they listen to your phone call. They open your mail, they listen to your phone calls. So you have no like privacy. So I'm talking in code to him so that they don't rip the phone out of my hand. And he knew me well enough to pick up on what I was saying. And so he was like, all right, I'll call your mom and we'll get you out of there as soon as we can. Let us make a plan. So at that point, they knew that I was leaving. So we had church that night and I was going to leave the next morning. So my mom had friends in Houston. So I was going to take a bus to Houston. My parents' friends were going to pick me up in Houston and put me on a plane and send me home. But that night we had gone to church and we're sitting in the pews and then the altar call comes and I'm just sitting there and everybody is like getting up out of their seat, coming up to me, telling me that I need to get up and go forward and be saved. I said, I'm already saved. And they were insisting that I get up and come forward and be saved. And the girls were crying. They're putting their hands on me and praying. Like I must have had 15, 20 hands on me. And then at that point, Mrs. Thorne is trying to get me out of the pew to come forward. And I ain't having it. I'm already saved. Quit playing this game with me. And so now I'm partially pulled out of the pew and I just dropped to the ground. All right. So that she couldn't drag me up to the altar. And at this point now, my legs and arms are like wrapped around the bottom of the pew so that they couldn't pull me forward. And the girls are screaming and crying in there. And Wiley Cameron is just still having the altar call, like this is a normal behavior in a church, you know? And so they realized that I was not going forward, but she kept trying to pull me. And then I finally said, I don't want to serve Christ. I want to serve Satan. And in my mind, I'm like, Lord, I don't mean that. And that's when they stopped. That's when they stopped pulling me.
Okay.
So
then what happened? I mean, what do you just go back to your dorm after that? You're just like, hey, I'm going back.
I'm just imagining like this horror movie girl, like just like,
yeah,
you know, serve Satan. And
yeah.
So yeah, what happened after that? Like, did it go silent? Like,
so then like Wiley Cameron just ended the service. And like I said, there really weren't church members in there. So it was just a big old show for like the girls in the home, and the boys got up and left at that point. And so we went back to the home and I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody. And I went back to my room and I started packing up. And then the girls all came outside my room and they're laying on the floor, prone, praying really loud, crying and screaming for God to save me. In the meantime, I just go take a shower. They're still out there crying and screaming. I come back out, I'm still packing up. They're out there crying and screaming. And they did not leave the whole entire night. They were out there the whole entire night. In the morning, yes, they were still out there in the morning. It was like they took turns coming, crying and praying by the door, whatever. So then when I was like coming towards the door with my luggage to leave, another girl in the home had thrown me a note and I actually caught it in my hand and I just put it in my pocket. And so Mrs. Thorne gets me in the car. She takes me to the bus station. She gave me $18 and threw me and my luggage out in front of the bus station. Again, I'm young. I never took a bus. What am I doing? You know what I mean? So I had to go in there and I paid for the bus ticket. I had enough money. And they probably had done that a million times knowing I only needed $18. And so I paid for the bus ticket and I had like $6 left over. And I never smoked in my life, but I bought cigarettes and smoked after that. With the $6.
Oh man.
yeah, that's great.
You
Oh
are
gosh,
so
that's so
awesome.
funny. So when you got off the bus and you went to, you know, your family friends, did you like tell them like what happened, or did they not like cry and just like, here, go to your flight?
No, they were my parents' friends for a really long time. And we'd visited them in Houston, you know, years earlier when I was a smaller kid. And they were like, where were you? And I was like, the Roloff homes. And they're like, oh, come on. And I was like, no, I'm serious. I was at the Roloff homes. And they're like, and I said, I think I'm in big trouble when I get home because I made my parents spend all this money. Like I was concerned about the money. And they were like, honey, don't worry about it.
To watch, like to have you there.
Well, they paid for my flight.
Yeah.
And then they you had to pay like $300 a month if you could afford it. My dad could afford it, so he actually paid it.
Oh, okay.
And so they knew all about Lester Roloff. They knew about the abuse in the homes. They knew about all of it because they lived in Texas. And so she's like, honey, don't worry about it. I'll call your mom. And so they took me out to eat, and then they made sure I got onto the plane. And I got to O'Hare. My parents picked me up. And my mom and dad said they already told us about it. And my mom and dad never talked about it again after that. Once we left the airport, it was never discussed.
Did you ever have resentment against them? Like, you know, or was it just one of those like, I'm glad I'm home, like, let's just move on? Or did you have like
No, I wasn't. I created the whole issue, and I knew I created the whole issue with the lies I told at Hyles-Anderson. So I wasn't mad at them. They just never talked about it again, and they never like, were you in a gang? Nothing. It was just, let's just not talk about this and let's just move forward.
So you never talked to like even your mom about your experience there?
Nope. She never knew anything.
Okay.
Wow.
So did they attend Hyles-Anderson Church, like the First Baptist Church?
My parents, no.
Okay.
They
So
can't.
then when you went back, you didn't attend church or you did?
I wanted to go back to Hyles-Anderson College because I had written in my Bible, I promised God I will graduate from Hyles-Anderson College. And you know, when you make a promise to God, you better fulfill it according to them.
Right.
So this is in my mind and I need to finish. I need to go back to Hyles-Anderson College and I need to finish. So I started applying and they would not accept me. Okay. They wouldn't give me an answer whether they accepted me or not accept me. They just weren't answering me. And so in the meantime, Jack Scott comes over to my house to talk to me. Okay. Now he comes in, he has another guy with him. They stay upstairs with my parents and we go into my basement so that he could talk to me privately. And he just starts off with, why do you want to come back to Hyles-Anderson? And I was just saying, oh, because I love Dr. Hyles and I love Hyles-Anderson, blah, blah, blah. And then the conversation turned to sex. And at that time, I didn't think anything because Jack Scott was not busted yet for sex. So he was asking me if I ever had sex, if I did this, that, and the next thing, how many boyfriends I had, all that. All right. So like, I didn't think anything at that point.
Yeah.
And
Why would you
Hold on,
at that
can-
point? Why would you even
can-
think anything? You're just like, okay, this is a little weird, but
What, and do you know like roughly a year why, just so that we know how old he was at this time?
I left Hyles-Anderson College for the last time in 1992 or 3.
Okay. Okay.
and you were what, roughly 21 at this point?
By the time I left there, I was 21 and gone.
Okay.
Okay. So after
So
that whole encounter with like asking you those questions, did they finally accept you back to Hyles?
nope, they did not. So finally, like my mom kept saying, you need to apply to another college. Don't put your hopes on Hyles-Anderson. I was like, but mom, I really want to go back. And so it was about a week before Hyles-Anderson's semester started. And I told my mom, can you please call Jack Hyles? And so my mom called Jack Hyles and left her name. And Jack Hyles actually called back. And my mom told him she really wants to come back to Hyles-Anderson College. You guys are not accepting her. You're not denying her. You're just not saying anything. She could have been registered at another college. And now it's too late for the other college because Hyles-Anderson started after other colleges started. And so Jack Hyles was like, give me a moment. And within 2 minutes, Wendell Evans called. He was the president of the college. And he told my mom she's accepted, bring her on, the Tuesday after Labor Day. And then right after he hung up, Jim Jorgensen called. He was the vice president. And he also said that I could come back as well. So I went back. But the drama gets really good at this point.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Between-
Because I'm ready.
Yeah.
Because
Line roaches, cigarettes.
So
Yeah.
now I'm at Hyles-Anderson College and I'm like, do not do anything to screw around. Just get through this, graduate, and be on your way. So I wasn't doing anything to make waves. I wasn't doing anything to create problems. I was going to class. I was doing what I was supposed to do. I am pretty much a comedian. So, I mean, I did funny things that probably ticked them off, but nothing to actually be expelled or whatever. But I came back then the second year after that, and there was a new dean of women, and it was Belinda Castile. Okay. She had a thing of people bowing down to her. Like when she would talk to you, she would make you sit on the floor while she stood. Okay. And she talked down to you. So she could not stand me. And she had told another one of my friends, if it's the last thing she does, she will get me expelled from that college. So she wouldn't let me go on the bus route I wanted to go on. She wouldn't let me go soloing with who I wanted to go soloing with, to the point of I just went into like a different division that I usually don't go to. I would just show up and go with somebody I knew. So one day I was out on the bus route with one of the girls, and you're out there for so long. You're out there for like 8-9 hours, whether it's hot, cold, whatever. You're out there on the bus route in Chicago or Joliet or Aurora, which they called the parks because it was the suburbs. And you're out there for a really long time. So at times, you do stop to eat. Well, we were in a convenience store, and I bought an Archie comic, and she bought a soap opera digest. So we were sitting there, I was reading my comic, she was reading the soap digest. I'd never watched a soap in my entire life. I was raised with all brothers. I was athletic. I did sports, all the rest of that. I never in my life watched soap opera. And so when we came back to the college, it was in my backpack because she didn't have a bag. And so the next day it was Monday and I saw her in the like staff lounge and she was grading papers. So she was like a secretary for one of the teachers. And I said, you forgot your magazine in my backpack. And she's like, okay. So I brought it down. I gave it to her. Wednesday, I get called down to Belinda Castile's office and she accused me of having porn. I said, what are you talking about? Oh, yeah. I said, what are you talking about? I said, I worked in the post office and porn really did come into the post office at times, but I gave it to the person who was in charge of the post office. So I thought she was talking about that. And I was like, I gave it to brother so-and-so. And she's like, I'm not talking about that. I was like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's screaming at me, quit lying. You know what I'm talking about. And I was like, I honestly and truly and sincerely do not know what you're talking about. And she's like, the porn that you gave to the girl. And I was like, that was her magazine. I bought a comic book. She bought that. And she's like, nope. She said that it was yours. And she's like, and now we're going to search your room. I said, I don't care, whatever. Nothing's in my room anyways. So we go into my room with her assistant and her assistant starts searching my clothes and searching my drawer. And because I hated the feel of nylons, because I never wore them in my life till I went there. And I would wear like biker shorts and I always wore socks too, because I could not stand the feel of them. Well, in my drawer, I had like 5 or 6 pairs of biker shorts. She collected all those because you can't have shorts. And then she was in my jean jacket and there was a letter in the jean jacket and I snatched it out of her hand and I wouldn't let her have it. I had a friend there who was the pastor's daughter of a well-known Baptist church that anybody, if you said the name of the church, would have known. And that was the daughter of the pastor. She was dating a black guy at Hyles-Anderson. So that she had worn my jean jacket and that was a letter she had written to her boyfriend. And so I snatched it out of her hand. I wouldn't give it to her because I wasn't getting somebody else in trouble because I'm in trouble, not happening. So now I'm in trouble because I won't give her the letter. And I was like, it's in the room. And they're like, well, you can't go to your room then. Well, I had it on me. So now I'm down by the Liberty Square. It's where you can just sit and eat at Hyles-Anderson. And I'm on the payphone and I'm calling my mom. And Belinda Castile comes by, rips the phone out of my hand and hangs up the phone. And she goes, you're not going to church tonight till you give me that letter. And I said, I don't care. I don't want to go to church. And she goes, oh, you are going to church. She grabbed me by the arm and started dragging me down the hall in front of all the people who are getting ready to go to church. It was like embarrassing. So she gets a staff member to drive me to church. And while I'm sitting in the back seat of the car, I rip up that letter. And when I get to church, I like throw half of it in the parking lot and the other half into the garbage so that girl never got in trouble. So when we got back from church, they wouldn't let me go back to my room. I had to go sleep in the infirmary, in the men's half of the infirmary, with the clothes on that I had just worn all day. They did not let me go back to my room to get anything. The next morning, nobody said anything to me. So I went back to my room. I took a shower, changed my clothes, went about my day, went to class. And I get called down to Belinda Castile again. And she tells me that I need to pack up my room and move to a different dorm room. And this has to be done by Friday. So it was Thursday, so I had to be moved by the next night. So I move all my stuff and I'm thinking to myself, all right, if she's making me move, I've dodged, being in trouble. Nope. Monday morning, I go on the bus route on Saturday. I go to church on Sunday. Monday morning, she calls me down and tells me that I'm expelled. My mom could not pick me up at that moment. All right. So my mom's going to pick me up the next morning. And so that day I just did whatever because I didn't need to go to class. I was expelled, whatever. And I was hanging out with my friends and we were having like a goodbye party to me. Well, I went back to my dorm room to get some money and I got stopped by Belinda Castile's assistant and a security officer. And they told me that I need to come with them right now, that I need to get my Bible, my pajamas and a change of clothes, my toothbrush, and I'm coming with them. I couldn't even go back and tell my friends. They escorted me out the back door of the dorm, put me into the police car, took me across the street to the Grafton's house. In the Grafton's house.
Yeah. They got a police to escort you?
It was those police that are on the campus. They were
okay.
People. It's the fake police.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So like
So the Graftons are the Graftons are church members and they work at the college. And
Okay, of course. Yeah.
so they have a room in the basement of their house that was just all bunk beds because they let like teenagers sleep there, you know, like during conferences and stuff. And so that's where I was put. So here's me in a basement with like 15 bunk beds by myself. And they had told me, do not answer the phone, do not come out of the basement, do not touch anything in the Grafton's house. And I was like, whatever. And so I went to bed that night. I woke up in the morning. I'm still downstairs, just waiting, you know, for my mom to come. And then Belinda's assistant comes over and starts screaming at me for not answering the phone. I said, you told me not to answer the phone. I did answer the phone. So she takes me back to the college to get my stuff. All the students are in chapel, so there's nobody to see me there. So I took a real long time to get my stuff on purpose so that people would be out of chapel. So now I'm walking towards the front door and I'm screaming, F you, F this, inside the college. Like I'm making a scene as I'm leaving, and I purposely waited till the students were out of that chapel so that I could make a scene like that. And Sonia is pushing me out the door. The security guard's grabbing me because my mouth is just going at this point. They put me back into the car and bring me back over by the Graftons. When my mom showed up, she was like, she went to the college and they're like, she's not here. And my mom was like, what do you mean she's not here? And they took her across the street. And my mom, when I saw her face, she like was ready to explode and probably say the F word herself. That I was not where she dropped me off. Okay. So just thinking about everything my mom had gone through the first time I lied, going to the Roloff home, coming back to, like, I just could imagine what she was thinking. And when we got into the car, I said, Mom, do not say anything. Just put my stuff in the car and let's go. I said, I'll tell you what happened in the car. And so when we were driving home, I told her everything that happened. And she said, you are never going there again. And that was it. I got home, I got a job. And then I actually went back to college. I got 5 college degrees. I'm a high school teacher. I teach special ed, history. And that's where I am.
That's awesome. So I just want to be, because I'm going to forget if I don't say this. Okay. So the note thing reminded me, just to backtrack a little bit, when you were leaving the Jubilee home and that girl threw you a note, did you ever read it? What was it?
I did. She was begging me to send her money to get her out of there.
Oh,
and if I look through my stuff that I have saved, you know, over the years, I bet you that note is still in there.
Oh man, that's
well,
so
if you can
sad.
find it, I would like to see it, but obviously we don't have to share it on here, but you know, just to see.
Okay, and then back to the other note, did the preacher's daughter that you had kind of saved her butt, did you ever tell her what happened and tell her that what you did for her?
Yeah, we're friends on Facebook.
Okay, so she's aware of what happened.
She's totally aware because I talked to her too before I was actually kicked off the campus. I said, you left that note that you wrote to your boyfriend in my jacket, and they had it. I said, I ripped it up and I threw it away. So she knew. And she was like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mm-hmm.
She end up with that guy or no?
No, she ended up with somebody else. She no longer, even though her father was, you know, the pastor of a church that everybody know, and she wears pants. She's kind of just like I am.
Nice.
So she's normal now.
Normal. You just went about with your life and left that in the dust.
Right.
Yeah. So I think with your story is so different because your parents and your family was not within the IFB, and you know, like your like how you got into like the mix of everything is just so unique and different, and then added with the Lester Roloff home and then Hyles-Anderson College, and it's just like
double whammy.
Double. I mean, like a home run of just different. I guess my question would be, if somebody is like going to listen to this and they're either thinking about maybe sending their children to a home or maybe even just one of those mindsets like, oh, I believe in that discipline, what would you say to them?
I would tell them to really, really research it because, like I said, what I was presented was not what actually happened over there. Okay, so, you know, he's telling me, oh, you're going to, you can work on the farm, you can play music, bring your clarinet, because I was a music major at one point, so I could play the piano, clarinet, whatever. And I brought that stuff with me. I didn't get to play any of it. Okay, It was just working all day. It was nothing like he told me it was going to be.
Wow.
Wow.
So I would really research and ask people who have actually been there. And like, I would not lie about any, I admitted the part I lied about that ended me up over there. I wouldn't lie about any of this, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point in your life, do you still go to church? Are you still part of any kind of religion or anything like that?
No, when I left Hyles-Anderson, I did try to go to independent fundamental Baptist church in one of the towns over here. And all I wanted to do was go to Sunday morning church and listen to the sermon and go home. Nope. After about a month, let's go soul winning. I don't want to go soul winning. I don't want to do that. So I left that church, and then I tried a church of a graduate from Hyles-Anderson. Same thing. All I wanted to do was go to Sunday morning. Then I found myself there Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, go on the bus route. Let's go soul winning. Nope. I left there too. I don't want to do any of that. None of it. I want to sit and listen to a sermon and then go about my week. And I'll come back next week. But nobody wanted to do that. So I just left that as is. But I'd still pray every single day. You know, I pray for others, pray for what's going on in the country, you know, ask God to forgive my sins. And I also read my Bible. I know I'm saved. I know I'm going to heaven. If I don't go to church, then I don't go to church, whatever.
So you still consider yourself a Christian. You still believe in
Yeah.
God. You still have a relationship with him. You just don't attend a church.
Yes. And the
Okay.
funny thing is, I work in a school that is mostly, they say Black and brown students, which are African Americans and Hispanic students. And the Black students are really religious. And so, like, I find myself sitting there in discussions with them, discussing God and all the rest of it. And, you know, they come to me and they ask me because they know that I know my Bible.
And
Whenever they ask me,
with you doing that is just witnessing. That's how, I mean, like my mom said, like she struggled not, having that pressure of like going. But my mom does hair, and they got new on her, so she can no longer wear it. But she used to have like a hairdresser apron, and it would have a Bible verse. And she literally said there were so many people that would compliment her and it led into conversations. I've also talked to other people that do hair or whatever, or just in some type of, more that environment. And they were like, I don't go to church, but I've had so many conversations. And I'm like, yes, like that's what we're called to do. We don't have to be in a church to worship. Like I said last night, I can worship in my car. I can worship in the shower if I want to. I can do whatever, you know what I mean? The church is nice to have that, thing. But again, church hurt is real and it exists. And I think that people who go to like church like that should just do better in remembering that somebody in your pews might have that church hurt. So if they're not going every time the doors open, don't like make them feel like the worst human beings ever. And I think with IFB, they have that mindset. Like if you're not there every time the doors open, you're not good enough. You're not a good Christian. Are you saved? They always do that. Like, are you saved? And so, I mean, they did that to you, like where they were basically trying to physically make you go up there. And so I'm glad that you stood your ground and said, absolutely not, I am saved. And I'm very happy to hear that, this did not hurt your walk with God. It just, changed your perspective on things, and rightfully so.
Caryn, if you could go back in your mind to that 17-year-old girl, what would you tell her now?
Do not go to Hyles-Anderson College. Go ahead and get your degree in education, because you know what? It also delayed me. Like I should be nearing retirement here. And I'm not, because I got 10 more years because I wasted 10 of it playing with Hyles-Anderson College.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I thought you were going to say, do not talk to the man in the park.
That too.
Don't do it. Don't fall for it.
If anyone's listening, the advice is do not talk to men in parks.
Yeah.
If you could give any advice to like the pastors or pastors' wives or
just
women or
members,
staff members of churches or these religious institutions or colleges, if you could give them any advice now, what would it be?
Well, when I was expelled the last time, they expelled me for number one, which said my spirit didn't go with what they stood for over there. And obviously my spirit didn't go with what you went for over there. My spirit didn't go for the abuse or any of the rest of that. And so you had to get rid of me. But I have a perfectly good spirit, which is directed in other ways. So why can't you use the good of me instead of trying to, like break me down because I don't do what you want me to do?
Right.
Yeah,
That's
I think it goes
a
back
lot of
to
people said
just,
that.
yeah,
They try to break them down.
yeah.
That's what they do.
I mean, Barbara Ann literally said she was broken inside, and that broke my heart to hear that, because so many people do feel that way, even in the IFB. Definitely as women, we are second class citizens in their eyes, and unfortunately, a lot of the women who are in that believe that, and they're in such a abusive relationships, all that, and it's like they don't realize it, and it's unfortunate. It's more of a sad feeling, because like we're all out of it. We see for what it is,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, there's so many people in this, the independent fundamental Baptists that don't even realize what they're a part of, and it's really sad.
Yeah, and at one point, like I said, I had the 5 biker shorts that I would wear. Well, Linda Castile took that down to the vice president, which is a man, and she's holding them up in there, trying to belittle me, degrade me, kept screaming, "Why do you wear these? Why do you wear these?" Like trying to embarrass me in front of the man. And I didn't break down. I was like, whatever, you know. But she was trying to totally break me down, make me look foolish in front of the man. And this is what they do to people. And I'm sorry, my spirit does not go with that.
Yeah. So if there's anybody that is listening that's in a similar situation or going down kind of a similar path as you, where maybe like the parents are threatening to send you away, or
I have a lot of 18 to I think it was 26, that was a lot of majority of for season 1. What would you say to them?
I would tell them to find somebody. You know what? I would even go to the freaking police, because these homes are not what they portray to be. They're abusive, and they can look any of that up online. All the people who have survivor stories, the Roloff homes, the Agape homes, or whatever else homes there are. And there's not a lot anymore that have children under 18. And that's why. And at the Roloff homes in the church, they actually had a banner across the whole church: "The children are gone, Lord, but not out of mind." So they really go after these kids that are gonna obey what they say, where they could break them down, and it's a whole control thing. You just need to look at all the information that's out there. The internet tells you all, and the people are not lying. These things really happen there.
Right. Yeah, it's been interesting to hear everyone's stories. Everybody that we've interviewed has a very similar thread throughout their stories. And one thing I would say is probably don't go to your pastor. Unfortunately, that's a sad reality that pastors do turn a blind eye to it. They are more worried about the image of their ministry and their church instead of the actual people who are suffering and being abused, which is crazy to me. And I agree with you. Go to the authorities, go to the police, make a police report. So one thing that I'd like to point out is that if you feel like you can't make a police report, you can, because it doesn't have to be, the situation that you're in doesn't have to be like, here's the perpetrator right here, right now, and I'm going to call the police. If you have been a victim of abuse, if you have witnessed abuse, it doesn't matter if it was a month ago, if it was a year ago, go to your police department, file a report so that something is on record in writing. Because if somebody else comes along a month from now or a year from now, and then they also have the thought to file a report as well, then there's a record that has started, and there's a paper trail. So then they can start seeing patterns. But I would encourage people, do not go to your pastor, because unfortunately the pastors don't seem to really care about whether you're being abused or whether you're in a situation that you feel like you can't get out of. They just care about the image. So did you experience that yourself? Because I know a couple of our other interviews, they went to their pastor, and it was like things actually got worse after they went to their pastor.
I did go to Jack Hyles, but Jack Hyles actually liked me. So nothing became worse for me, through him or me telling him something. There was a time that I was on a dorm floor, and the dorm supervisor hated me and she kicked me off the floor. And I actually went and told him, and he told her to get out of my face and stop bothering me. So he was on my side. So I thought, and I don't think he knew all the rest of it because it was the people under him who were dealing with all that.
Okay. So I had something else to ask and now I forget. Oh, are you in touch with any of the girls from the Jubilee Home? Like, have you reached out, or has anyone ever reached out to you, found you on Facebook or anything like that?
No, because it was before like the internet actually was around. So, and they wouldn't let you talk to each other really in there. Like I said, that note that the girl threw me was like one of the first, times that somebody actually talked to me about something over there. So when I left there, I just left there. But I do talk to a bunch of people from Hyles-Anderson, that are just normal people now that they're not in there.
Yeah. Have you experienced in talking with the people that are no longer with the Hyles, affiliated with Hyles or anything like that? Have you experienced any of them becoming like atheist or agnostic?
No, most of them are kind of like I am. Whether they go to church or not, they still believe. Some of them, have changed denominations. They're not in the IFB anymore. But I have not met any that have said they're an atheist.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, we've had people in season 1, and I, like looking back, and I've said this to actually somebody who identifies as agnostic, but it's kind of searching. I even said, looking back now, like, and going through this and doing this podcast and being more open-minded and hearing so many people's stories, experiences, and stuff, I truly understand why people would stray away. I used to think like, oh my gosh, like, no, like you know what I mean? Because you have that mindset. Mm-hmm. But when you get to really the deep side of it, I can see why. Mm-hmm. And it makes me sad as a Christian. Like I think I said that on Stewart's episode, it makes me sad, like, that all these things transpired for you to be in that position. But I also understand, because when you go through so many things and when people use God's name in the way that they shouldn't, I understand why. And mm-hmm. it's really sad, but I understand why. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Caryn, for speaking on today's episode and sharing your story. I mean, that was a juicy.
You're awesome.
Yes, I love the firecracker attitude, because that was me.
You and I are very similar in that our personalities, the three of us.
Yes. So thank you. Thank you so much. And we're looking for, I have to get used to this. Man, we're looking forward to it. I am. So we're looking forward to hearing the feedback on today's episode. And who knows, maybe somebody listening to this remembers maybe you, or maybe what you're describing, and can reach out to us, and maybe we can get you connected, and that, from the Jubilee Home or something. So
okay. Cool.
All right. Experience. Hello.
Hey. So I was at Happiness Hill Christian Home, and accounts were Raymond and Kay Palmer. Cheryl ended up in Rebecca Home. She was actually on the plane that went down. We go up the steps, we go inside, and he's
back, and I'm like, what is that? Like,
holy word, I will make it a lamp unto my feet and a light. And
like that is cold. That's cultish. Nobody does.